We are joined by Dr. Kevin Hewison, Weldon Thornton, a distinguished Emeritus Professor of Asian Studies at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Thank you very much for joining us, Professor. So with these mounting legal challenges and protests in the streets and cracks emerging in her coalition, does Ms. Paetongtarn have any real chance of surviving the storm?
I don't think so. I think the government and the Shinawatras clan themselves are in serious trouble at the moment. The recent events are at the end of a long period of agitation against the government and also blocking of the government's major policies. So it's a government which appears to have done very little. Its major coalition party deserted it, or, well, perhaps deserted just before it was thrown out of the coalition. And they're now consolidating in an attempt at a no-confidence vote sooner rather than later.
Professor, what is next for her? I mean, she has 15 days to present her case. And so what is she likely to say in her defense as the court considers that dismissal? I mean, how might it also be perceived? And on top of that, Ms. Paetongtarn, she has also appointed herself as a culture minister right before that court announcement. I mean, do you see this as a strategic move or, might it backfire?
It's seen by the government as a strategic move, but I think it's likely to backfire because her opponents will suggest that she's still in cabinet and she's still operating as a de facto prime minister. And the anti-Thaksin forces will say that she's acting as prime minister for her father. So I think the pressure was likely to mount, and the major opposition party, the People's Party, has been calling for an election. But as Pheu Thai holds out, fearing that they will do badly in an election, the opportunity for going to that election narrows. The path to an election narrows if they don't go sooner rather than later.
Professor, if Ms. Paetongtarn is ultimately removed, who stands to benefit the most from her ouster? And more critically, who could step in her place?
Well, if she's ousted, there are only a couple of people who can be Prime Minister because parties have to have nominated the Prime Minister beforehand. And there's one on the opposition side and there's one left in the Pheu Thai party. Presumably the Pheu Thai party would go to that person if they intend to try to stick it out. The groups that are benefiting most and the parties that are benefiting most is the former coalition party, the Phum Jai Thai party. They moved into opposition, taking what now appears to be or is presented as a principled stand against her and her contacts with Hun Sen and what she said in that phone call, when in fact they were being manoeuvred out of the coalition already. But they're still the second largest opposition party, but they're probably the most powerful. And the people who have been bringing the charges, or some of the people who have been bringing the charges against Paetongtarn, including the one that the court agreed to hear yesterday, have been senators aligned with that party.
This isn't just about one leader. It's also about Shinawatra dynasty as well, Professor. Given the fates of Thaksin, Yingluck, and now Paetongtarn, what does this moment mean for the future of the family in Thai politics? Is there an era ending, or will this spark another wave of support?
It's really difficult to see how this could spark another wave of support in the same way that it did in the past. Thaksin, when he came back to Thailand, did a deal with the establishment who had been his enemies and effectively put aside all of those people who had been supporting him in the past, the broader electorate that had supported him in the past. I think it's going to be very difficult for even someone like Thaksin, who has considerable deal-making power and capacity, to bring back the family from this position that it's in now. And this is partly why they don't want to go to an election, because they realise they won't do very well in an election, because they'll be punished not just by their opponents, but by poor Thai voters who haven't seen anything come from this government. There were lots of promises, and there were lots of promises that were broken once the government got into power. Admittedly, some of those broken promises were due to them being blocked by the opposition senators and also groups within the shaky coalition.
Oh, Professor, do the developments open up the possibility of a military coup? I mean, based on past events, 2006, 2014, the coups, they both follow, a similar trajectory involving a Shinawatra-led government. And whether or not you think so, if you could just talk to us about, some of the similarities and differences with these previous instances.
Yeah, there's some similarities. There are some differences. I mean, the groups that were protesting in fairly large numbers, really for the first time last weekend, one of their leaders, the person who was pushing for a coup in 2005, 2006, Sonti Limtongkun, actually called for a coup, but for the military not to form a government afterwards. Quite a lot of people in Thailand would be reluctant to see another military coup. But of course, you can never rule it out. The backdoor deals that have done, the military has been part of the coalition that has destabilised the current government. So they're working against the government. And that was one of the things that Paetongtarn said to Hun Sen, that there were elements in the military working against them. And tellingly, in the cabinet reshuffle that was just taken place, they've left the Minister for Defence position open. And there's some suggestion that that's for a military figure who's retiring shortly. But the military does have an opportunity to move, and it would do that if it saw that there was political instability or a political vacuum. And of course, in Thailand, with its history, you can't rule out a military coup.
Right. And, this couldn't have come at a more inconvenient time. The Thai finance minister is in the U.S. for trade talks. Thailand is looking at U.S. tariffs of 36%. How will the uncertainty over Ms. Paetongtarn's future and her coalition, how could that affect Thailand's ability to negotiate down those tariffs before the deadline? And is there a real risk that this situation could actually lead to a lame duck government?
Well, I think it's pretty much lame duck government at the moment. The Pheu Thai party miscalculated on their timeline for getting a new cabinet in position. So the preferred acting Prime Minister, Paetongtarn, can't take the position because he actually hasn't been sworn in yet. So they've got their second preferred acting Prime Minister. The government doesn't have much of an economic track record at the moment. The economy is in trouble. So I think in terms of negotiations with the US, they can probably negotiate, but they're not in a strong position at the moment.
All right, Professor, I appreciate your time. Kevin Hewison, the Weldon E. Thornton Distinguished Professor of Asian Studies at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. And you can also head on over to our website, that is cna.asia, for more coverage and commentaries on the suspension that has shaken one of the country's most powerful political dynasties. One expert notes that even if the Shinawatras weather this episode, their hold on power has been severely weakened.